What's up, everybody? My name's Sean Malloy, and you're into another episode of the Alpha Zone Gaming Podcast. Podcast. What are we doing?
It's a contest.
Oh my god, dude, it's 2 weeks. 2 weeks been a long time.
We win!
Like always, I'm with my main man from the Emerald Isle, Mr. Ronan Fox. Ronan, say hi to the people. I introed you.
Sorry, I didn't hear you there. I was too busy interrupting you.
God, it's like there's a bull in a china shop right now. All the shit's going wrong. Like, can't figure out audio. And then also with the pride of the Grand Canyon State, Mr. Kent Kingsford is here with me.
Woo.
Woo, we got it, boys. So that was 10 minutes of delays followed by a botched introduction, but we're here. We're back. Talk about gaming, talk about PlayStation. We got some retro gaming to talk about with my dudes. We're also going to talk about Crash Bandicoot on this week's episode, the Insane Trilogy from Vicarious Visions. The Destiny 2 beta launched this morning. I'll be discussing that. Atari has launched a quote-unquote new console, or a 2 launch, and Kingdom Hearts 3 finally has a release window. I'm not actually calling it a date. And we're going to wrap up the show with our Game of the Year so far and our random question. But with that, I like to start every show the same way. Guys, what are you playing?
Oh, man, just a literal shit ton of retro games. Like, it's out of control. I've played so much random shit this week. Marvel vs. X-Men. I've played Super C. I've played Air Zonk. I've played Ninja Spirit, Tailspin, Darkwing Duck, a bunch of stuff. So it's been really fun to do that. On the normal system, I actually jumped back into Diablo 3 and did some fun running with that. My buddy picked up the Necromancer pack, and I'm debating whether I want to spend that money, but there's some really cool shit that the Necromancer does. So I fired up a Crusader build, and we jumped in and ran through that. Like the whole first act, I think we're already like rank 40 something.
Okay, that's pretty cool, man. Yeah, I only played through the Diablo 3 campaign one time. But I thought it was on the shorter side of the campaign, so I'm interested in, like, when you're like rolling new characters and like going into that Necromancer DLC, what's actually going to add to the end game and like just more playability for that title, which I think is a great idea. And then Blizzard fans lost their shit like when they announced a Necromancer. So yeah, the more you dig into it, I want to know more about it because I still have it on my crossbar. So I'd love to jump back in it again because it's just one of those games. It was on sale, download it for $30, and every once in a while it'll scratch an itch, or I'm like, oh, okay. But it's the same style that when I'm playing Marvel Heroes Omega, that's kind of like scratching the same itch for me. And so I'm kind of balancing the two, which is awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you got back into it. Regarding the retro gaming, we're going to get into your and Ronan's own section in a second. But Ronan, other than retro stuff, you playing anything on the PS4 or Vita?
I've been checking out the PSN's free game Until Dawn. A couple of things I want to say. I was holding off for a long time to play this game, mostly because I just didn't have really time to get stuck into a new franchise and not knowing what to expect. And now that I get it for free, I think pat on the back to Sony. People give them stick every month for giving us crappy games. Until Dawn is a phenomenal game. The motion capture and graphics, first and foremost, is leaps and bounds above the likes of a Telltale Games, which is also a free game this month. I think it's Game of Thrones came out.
Yep.
And I personally think that if the Until Dawn developers were to join up with Telltale and push Telltale in a direction that I think they need to go, I think you have an unstoppable force there. I think Telltale's problems was never with storytelling. They always engaged you in stories and, you know, a real kind of sense of start, finish, and caring for these characters. But there was always that, for me anyway, that gap in the middle where the mechanics just got in the way a little bit and slowed down the pacing, which is not what you want in an adventure game, in that style anyway. I think you wanted to keep it flowing. I think Until Dawn does a great job of pacing. Now, granted, it's a horror and it's meant to get your nerves going, and it does give you a few jump scares, which I nearly jumped out of my seat, I'll be honest. Just some of the motion capture, like the acting in it is phenomenal. It's really is top notch. And when people said about that game, they were like, oh yeah, it's good, it's a really good one of those games. But I wasn't expecting it to look as gorgeous as it is. And when motion capture is done that well, I think you bond with the characters more. I think that's the kind of immersion breaker with the likes of a Telltale game, that these people are, you can see their emotions, you can see their facial expressions, and that just brings me into the story a little bit more. So my hat's off. It's a great game, and I would tell anyone, if they haven't touched it, that I'd recommend it.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. When that game was developed by Supermassive Games, released
Supermassive, yeah.
released not last October, an October before that. I think that game, when it came out from Sony had no idea what type of hit they had on their hands. I remember when that game came out, it was not easily defined. Like
No.
in stores, it was sold out everywhere, and I think that game is hopefully it keeps this franchise going. I know there's the was it Rush of Blood, the VR game?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, and then there's the other sequel called, was it The Asylum or something, Kent? The one that's PSVR that was just announced on at E3.
I think so.
It's like it's a prequel to Until Dawn, like 60 years in the past, but it's all in VR. My main thing about Until Dawn in the franchise, they're Supermassive, and that franchise is now like gearing towards this VR push, and I just want them to make another Until Dawn, because what you were saying, Ro, with the facial animations, the way you can like choose your narratives, like who you're choosing to live, choosing to die, your end game. There's something like, I think it was 33 like different endings you could possibly have with all the different iterations of your choices.
The way they use the butterfly effect theory, I think, is fantastic, and it really blends into a game like that. Instead of another game did it, Life is Strange, they had the rewind time.
Right.
I think it's really cool that there's an aspect of kind of a theory out there that affects the gameplay and makes these decision making feel a little bit more important. And more with the butterfly effect, it feels like the decision I make is meant to be made that way. I shouldn't play this game twice. The way I pick the first time around is the way it would have happened if I was there. So I think that's phenomenal. Again, gets me right in the game and gets me right in the story.
Yeah, I think when I played it the first time, I played my first run through. I thought I had everybody saved. I messed up at the last section, and so there's a few campers, or a few for kids I didn't save. And I was looking at the trophy list, as I do, and I wondered, like, can I go back, replay this a second time, and pick up all these trophies? And then ultimately I realized I don't want to, because I thought my first playthrough was such a natural progression of where my story ended up that I don't want to tarnish that. So I totally get what you're saying. Yeah. So yeah, anybody listening, watching, Until Dawn's free on PSN until July 31st on PlayStation Plus. Please grab that. And also the other way,
the best game in a long time that they've released for free.
Yep, and don't turn your nose up on Game of Thrones. Also, that's a really good Telltale series, albeit it's a bit long. It's 6 episodes, as like countering the usual 5. So both really good titles this week this month on PSN. Before we jump into your guys' retro section, I want to talk about 2 things I've been playing really quick. The first of all is the Destiny 2 beta. It launched this morning. You start it up, you pick a class. There's no customization at all. It's you're a basic Titan Hunter or Warlock. You jump right in, 2 story missions, and then you get pulled out to your main menu. There's 2 different types of competitive multiplayers. One strike you can play. I don't play competitive multiplayer. I just jumped right into the strike. It's called the Inverted Spire. Really cool platforming nature to that level. You're constantly jumping in between like these huge barriers. New aspect of the game, they have these rings that are just like in the middle of an environment. If you jump into a ring, it shoots you across to another end of the map, and so you're constantly like moving between points. It really gives like a better depth of field of where these environments are in terms of what's up.
They pulled those out of multiplayer.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. There's some multiplayer maps that have those where they launch you across the map.
Well, there we go. I've rarely touched multiplayer, so that's cool that they're integrating that like back into story, and that's really opening up these missions to like a much more fluid and like active environment rather than here's one path, take it A to B, and like that's where you end. There is like a huge like boss at the end to fight. I died many times. The other 2 guys in my strike team, multiplayer, or I was actually in matchmaking, so I didn't need 2 people going in with me to play. Like they just automatically updated 2 guys. We found them in like 5 seconds. Good to go. And the thing I miss most about Destiny is like this weird camaraderie that players have. Like we all jumped into the game, we started at the landing spot, we all turned around, we looked at each other, we waved, and then we knew like we were off. And I forget that Destiny is really this community that's really built on, like, it's not chivalry, but it's like it's this niceness of the community. There's kindness like between players. And I think that's really cool, and it's really rare to find. There's camaraderie. There's not a lot of vitriol like spewing back and forth, which is incredible to me. Like you never see that. It sold me in Destiny 2. The graphics are a little bit updated, but it's back. And when we've talked about Destiny 2 before, it's like that warm, fuzzy junk food gaming that we talk about all the time, Ken. It's like, oh, you can jump in here, and right now, if I wanted to, I can totally just go play that strike again because it just feels good. Like I just can't get over like how good that game feels to play. Always, we talk about it, we've beaten it like a dead horse, like on the show, but it just feels the best type of shooter. Hats off to Bungie. They're getting ready for another monster hit. The other thing I've been playing, I've been going through a couple of other games that haven't really hit for me, but one I tried to put time into was the aforementioned Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. Naughty Dog games remade by Vicarious Visions. Ken, were you playing this with me, or was it Ronan that we were going about? Ronan, you played it first, right?
Yeah.
So you had a much better experience than me with these games, because I realized that as much as they're playing back into my nostalgia factor of the sound design, the level design, like what the characters do, the spins, I just realized that mechanically they didn't update the games enough for me to want to replay them all. And I'm not they just didn't hit for me, man. Like I finished the first one, and I was moving on to 2. And I realized that I think these games are stuck in this mental time capsule for me, and I can't bring them back up. And this kickstarted the whole debate within our group about retro gaming. And you guys have actually took it upon yourselves to develop your own retro gaming kits, like what you guys are playing. You're specifically calling out one game to try and discuss on the show. So I don't know what I'm going to name this new section for the show, but right now I'm calling it the Retro Gaming Corner with Kent and Ronan.
Nice.
So real quick, guys, I want you to share with the nice folks. I want to know what you built, what have you been playing, what's your favorite thing you've been playing, what's your game of the month, but ultimately, what made you decide to jump back into retro gaming?
I was already kind of in that a little bit. I was been messing with the Retron 5, and I've had my TurboGrafx since I was a kid. So I mean, I like to go back and revisit that stuff, but I'm kind of like it's a curated look back. Like I don't play everything or anything retro. I go back and play stuff that I have a fondness for.
Sure.
And that's probably a pretty big weakness in how I play retro games. There's a lot of good stuff out there that I could probably discover that I didn't see the first time. But I got tired of hunting down cartridges. Hunting down cartridges is expensive, and it's a pain in the ass. And I have, a modest little selection of cartridges that I've tracked down. I'll probably still go out and look for it. Have to find the cartridge to play the game, which is, fantastic.
Sure.
I built a RetroPie, which for those of you guys that are not familiar with the Raspberry Pi, it's a little one board computer. I mean, it's like this big, so for frame of reference, it fits in the palm of your hand.
Cool.
It's pretty straightforward. It's basically like a cell phone processor with a couple of USB 3.0 slots, a wireless adapter, a Bluetooth adapter, HDMI, and audio outputs just sort of wired in there. And it runs off of a micro SD, like a hard drive. It basically has a flash hard drive, so you got to program it.
Cool.
I currently have a Mac, so I didn't really want to do that dance, so I ordered it from a company that preloaded it with a bunch of stuff. So it's about 20,000 games deep. It wasn't quite plug and play, so I had to dick with it a little bit. If you're going to do a RetroPie, as part of your build, plan a USB keyboard as part of your build, because you're going to need a USB keyboard, and it sucks to have to run it back and forth to your computer to go Google stuff and then bring the keyboard back with you to try it. It's annoying.
Yeah.
But the big thing for me with retro games is always that, like, the argument is like, now people are talking about gaming as an art form. Now gaming has get to a point. I think it's always been an art form. I just think it's underappreciated in its time, definitely for people's creative ability it takes to make something like that. And so to play Symphony of the Night again is like to experience, someone giving artistic genius to the world, I think. Sure. Personally, to play. Yeah, to play some of the old Mario games, to play, some of the really great cross sections of gaming history is to go back and experience great art, you know, and it's always kind of funny to me because people look at it like, you know, oh, you're just playing old shitty games, but you know, no one says that about other art mediums. No one says, oh, you're just reading old shitty books, oh, you're just looking at old shitty paintings. Like, if they were good back then, they're good now, you know.
Like Casablanca,
so that's why
get that shit out of here. It's old.
Yeah, well, there's not even color in that thing. What the fuck?
Bah, get that out of here. No, yeah, like Ronan. So, like Kent's gone back, and he's really using it as like this time machine back. What did you build, and like what are you playing right now on it?
So I went a little different direction. I have ordered the RetroPie, which Kent built, and I'm looking forward to that thing coming just for the simple fact that it's going to be in my sitting room, ready to go, and friends come over and, you know, have a bit of fun with. But I actually built, using my laptop, I installed a program called Arch, and it is basically, if you look at the YouTube channel, I did a video on how to install that thing. It's simple. It looks exactly like a PS4 XMB. It works off a 360 controller, which I have plugged in constantly, and I had to load all the stuff in myself, as in ROMs and emulators, but it makes it very easy to do. And all you need to do is go and look at my video or look at the hundreds of other videos that are online, and you'll have a retro system on your laptop, on your desktop, you could probably get it on the phone. There is a way to get it on your Vita, but I have bypassed the update that is needed for it.
Right.
You can load it onto your PS3. It's flawless what you're able to do. But the games that I've been playing, sorry,
I said I think you can put it on PSP too, can't you?
PSP, yeah. And you don't need a lot of power. I mean, I have about 10,000 games, and all that is about 5 gig worth of stuff. Now, I know there is, you know, hims and haws about emulation and stuff, but aren't we the ones that are actually holding on to, like Ken said, that art style from years back? Like, there's some games out there that you just can't get the cartridge for.
Right.
And I'm able to, you know, play it, respect the game as an art form, and just to make it survive and live on into the future. I brought the system over to my friend's house last Sunday, and this is when it hit me. He said, yeah, bring it over, we can have a few games. So I said, grand. So I brought 4 controllers. I brought my Xbox controller and 4 PS4 controllers. There was 4 and 3 PS4 controllers. And we had the best night ever, just playing Mario Kart. We were playing Super Smash Brothers. We were playing Alien 3 on Sega and SNES. And what I found amazing about that night is I didn't feel any different than if I was playing, you know, a game that was out yesterday. It still gave me that same warm, fuzzy feeling of, you know, friends sitting around playing video games. And I think that's why I kind of got into video games at the start. It was this social aspect that we don't really have it anymore. We do to an extent where you can play with your friends online, but gone are the days of couch co-op. And every time a game is released now, oh, it's couch co-op. It's this big deal because it doesn't happen anymore. That was the best moment for me. As far as games, my game of the month, I would honestly say it's Conker's Bad Fur Day, because I never got to play that thing when I was younger. It always had an adult humor that my parents wouldn't allow me to look at. I mean, the squirrel starts off drunk, and the whole game is him trying to get over a hangover and figure out what the hell's going on. There's rude words, you know. It's really adult humor, and I think the voice acting still holds up today, and the fact that games still hold up, I think that's a beautiful thing. And I'm glad that people are out there making these emulators and easier ways to play old games that nobody might never have a chance to do.
Yeah, I think you guys are bringing up this really good point with this whole like this theory of like making games like museum pieces. And I think, Ro, you brought up this really good point where it's who's bearing the torch now, that if we can't like go out and get these cartridges. Like, I'm a purist when it comes to emulators or downloading like movies or anything like that. Like I like to experience them like as they should be experienced. But gaming is this weird concept where the technology just isn't there, or the monies or the funds just aren't there to go out and like get all these cartridges, like you were saying, Ken, paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars to play a game that's a relic from the 1980s. And now with these like emulator systems, and hats off to the guys who are designing these systems, because they're doing the gaming world a disservice, especially, is they're able to put these games forward and bring them to a time where we can have like Ronan go back and play with his friends and experience these feelings together, that like why we're doing it. Like we're nowhere near done with the show, but I end off the show with saying like we do it for the love of the games and the love of the discussion, and that's what we're doing here. We're bringing gaming to this like forefront, to this love of it. And I think what you guys are doing with like your retro boxes is huge. And I think what Nintendo is trying to do with the NES Classic and the Super Nintendo Classic, like those are, I understand what they're doing, but if you want to bring these retro games to the masses, I think you actually have to bring them to the masses and not making them so limited quantities. If you want to hold up to your camera really quick, like your Super Nintendo box, that put that up there. It's the miniest of the Super Nintendo Mini, right? Like he's made one himself. Yeah. It's also a point of frustration for me that Nintendo is making their entry to retro gaming behind this wall, and the wall is availability to find and like to purchase and to bring in. And I think you guys are doing something awesome with these retro gaming sessions. So hats off to you guys, like building it and making sure you have your programs ready. And Ronan, that video that you laid out how to do it on your computer for those who want to is excellent. People should check that out on our YouTube channel. The next thing I want to talk about is, what did you guys decide on your game for the month?
Can't you take this because it was your choice this month?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I would have mine up and running in time, so I wanted to pick something that I knew Ronan had access to. I knew it was good, and I knew that if my retro pile wasn't up and running, I could just click on something else and play it. So I actually picked Bonk's Adventure, which is the TurboGrafx anagram to Mario. I really love that game. I play that game once a year and beat it. I can beat it in one sitting. Like Bonk's Adventure is logged to my memory permanently. So I really enjoy that game. It's NEC, and I forget who the developer is. I'll have to look back at it. But for people that want to play it, you can get it on PS3. They did release an emulated version of it on PS3. You can get it on Vita, but the problem is you have to have a PS3 to transfer it to your Vita. It's one of those old Vita games that you had to do that still, which sucks. But it's available. And then obviously emulation. Me and Ronan both have that on our emulator. But basically, you're caveman, you run around, you headbutt stuff, you eat meat, you get pissed off, you beat people up. It's such a cartoony, fun, like period piece. Like from early 90s gaming, it is what early 90s gaming was. I don't know. To me, it's really neat. And it gets slept on a lot. People don't get to play it because TurboGrafx was largely a retarded cousin to a successful console.
Right. Did I remember it right? Like I remember playing a Bonk's game on my original fat gray Game Boy. Are we talking the same game, or is that a sequel?
They made a Game Boy port, and they made some ports to other systems, but they're not the same game. The original game was on TurboGrafx. Actually, the original game was on the PC Engine, ported TurboGrafx, but it had been around years at that point, and they tried to change it and mix it up a little. The Super Nintendo version is really weird.
Cool. Ronan, what do you think about Bonk's Adventure, man?
Yeah, like exactly what Ken said. I can see the comparison that he has with Mario. The thing that I like about Bonk's is it's got this really cool mechanic where you jump up in the sky and you basically dive down with your head on top of the enemies. And that's the coolest aspect of the game for me. But the platforming is, if you like Mario, you're going to like this game because the platforming is really tight. And some of the environments are really cool. It changes from level to level. And yeah, for me, I think I would say about halfway through the game. And for me, I'm glad I got to play it. And I think this is what's important about these sections is pick a game that, you mightn't have played, Kent, and let's go and bang heads in the show. But great recommendation. It took me a while to get you.
Real quick question.
Yeah.
Over the Mario games, it's surprisingly deep. So you mentioned you jump and you can do the headbutt, like drop on your head. Okay. Did you figure out how to do the flip mechanic?
No, definitely not. I know you mentioned that, but I was like, flip mechanic. I thought I only have 2 buttons to work with here. Jump and nosedive.
And dive, yeah.
The nosedive, it depends on how your emulator's set up. You either have to like spam the nosedive button or hold it.
Okay.
But he'll flip.
I'll check that out. Definitely.
It makes fighting bosses more like a juggling kind of game.
Yeah.
Because you can stay in the air and sort of bounce and time yourself. It's that's like a whole mechanic. Because first time I played that game, I didn't know anything about it because I was a kid. And I went back and screwed with it. And the thing that was cool about TurboGrafx is it had the option to put a turbo on or off on your buttons. And so basically when you hold it down on TurboGrafx 16, it's spamming it for you electronically. So you can flip.
That's pretty
It was
cool,
like
man.
built into the controller.
Yeah, so to line it up for, I mean, by the time, are you guys going to have another game by the time next show rolls around, or are you guys still working through Bonk?
I mean, I play Bonk so much, man. I could pick it up or leave it at any point. I'm down to pick another game.
I'll have a think about it, and I'll pick one just before the end of the show. How about that?
Yeah, there you go, Ronan. Have a think, and then we'll announce that next game on the Canton Ronan Retro Corner, or whatever I'm going to call this like section, because I still have no idea. I have a bunch of names like written down. It's fine. We're going to stay on the retro side of things, and while we move into the news, Atari, weirdly, let's talk about this company really quick. E3 weeks ago, they announced a new console. Everyone's like, what the hell are you talking about? Yesterday, Atari throws up this post to Jason Schreier at Kotaku, the first to break it. You see the box. It's a decent looking box.
The wood one looks fucking dope.
Yeah, dude, it looks cool, but it has like the Atari logo on the front. There's two versions. There's like the wood. I can't call it other than a box because I don't know what it is because it's literally a box right now. There's two finishes to this box. There's like the slick black one, and then there's the cool wood panel one. Press release that I've pulled out are promising new games content as well as older games content in an emulation box with new content. Whatever that means. It's directly pulled out.
I'm totally off the reservation because that is literally all the information you're going to get about it. That's all they released. Yeah. But I have a theory on what it is.
Right, yeah. Let me run through this real quick. So, Ken, you mentioned it hasn't even begun production yet because it hasn't. Like, they don't know if this is going to run as a Kickstarter, a Fig campaign, if they're just doing private, like angel investors, or what. All signs are pointing to a crowdfunding at some point. Ken, I want to know your theory, and then Ronan, I want to throw it to you. Is this a good idea for Atari? Because I'm not sure, man.
So everybody does forget that Atari's still around, still in business. Atari's a licensing house. They sell the license to their games and their classic properties. That's mostly how they make their money. I have a feeling, judging by the ports on this, there's ports on the back. There's looks like lights to delineate controller numbers on the front. But there doesn't appear to be a disk drive, and there doesn't appear to be a cartridge slot, only an SD card slot.
Right.
My prediction is that the number one complaint people have about the NES Mini and the SNES Mini is that that's cool that you get those games, but why doesn't Nintendo just hook this to their virtual console and allow me to download all kinds of stuff?
Sure.
Certainly the technology's there because that's literally what my Retro Pi is, which costs, the board costs $30 at retail.
Right.
So I think that they're going to have an internet connection, and they're going to have a retro store, and they're going to license the holy piss out of every Atari property they've ever had, and they're going to start seeing if they can get other companies to do that. So the first company that springs to mind is that Sega, who is also in the same boat, all they have is licensing their software anymore. For Sega, it's going to be a big draw for them if they price it right, if they get it out to a lot of people. And I think the right price is to price it like an SNES or an NES Mini, that $80 to $100 range. And you'll probably sell it to all the people that really wanted to get an NES or an SNES Mini, but just didn't end up getting a hold of one.
Yeah. Ronan, for you, is this a good idea? And then I'll tee off on it.
I'm not quite sure because Atari was kind of before my time. So, I mean, another console out in America, bring it. But as far as a business point of view, I'll leave that whole situation to Kent because I'll check that thing out if it comes out. If it impresses me, let's do it.
Yeah, my thing is weird, right? Like I have a bunch of different schools of thought. My first school of thought is, who the hell's going to buy this? And then my first theory is kids from the 70s that want to bring their gaming forward, right? You can make this argument for the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo to bring it forward because there's like this overlap where you can appreciate like the games on Nintendo, whether it be like Mario 1, 2, and 3 or Zelda or anyone. Atari, like they're big in the arcade market. And so are you going to sit the same kid down and say, I want you to play Super Mario Brothers 3, arguably one of the best games of all time, or I want you to play Joust, or no, not just like Adventure,
Pong.
or Pong, or like the Pac-Man that can't even form circles. It's just little squares on the screen. They're like getting shot across. It's like,
Well, you guys got to remember that it's not just the 2600. Like you said, they're big in the arcade. Atari has newer arcade games that they still release.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, so that's something we have to keep in mind. But I mean, the way I'm reading this right now is they do want this nostalgia box, like another one, and like I don't know, if this is a good idea. One of my huge red flags that pop up is we haven't gone in production yet. We're waiting to see like what happens. I'm like, man, if you were 1,000% like behind this idea, if you announced it at E3 and said we have news coming, the news that should have launched yesterday was we're now in production, we're taking pre-orders, this is everything. These are the games that has pre-installed. This is what you can do with the SD card. These are all the ports. And they deliver. They show us a box. Like, and I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Well, and they showed us a render of a box, not even a box.
Right,
and,
right. Yeah. I mean, you got that sweet render.
It's not about whether it's in production, but if you're going to sell it to the public, you want people to come and put their money on your Kickstarter or pre-orders or however you're asking for money. People got to know what they're going to get.
Yeah, man.
So while I have a theory on it, and I personally I'm excited by that theory just because of how neat that idea is.
Sure.
The reality is, from a business standpoint, there's a weakness there.
What's the weakness? Oh, Kent's cutting out again. This is bad news bears. Anyway, I think I don't know. The Atari box is just so weird to me. Like this thing's weird. It's like it wants to exist in both worlds, and I just don't know like what to do with it. So
yeah,
if we do the Alpha Zone's patented thumbs up, thumbs down rating system, I'm at about a here. Yeah, between the averages, we're about there, so we're okay. Next,
can you go here?
That popped up from D23 this weekend in Anaheim, California. Kingdom Hearts 3 finally has a release window, 2018. My prediction, it's already delayed.
And nobody cares.
Yeah, I think people are going to care, man, but I do not think they're going to go as crazy as they have been with these other games.
I think the hype behind that game is ridiculous.
Oh, dude, I think the hype is too big. They're so far gone from the mainline series, like 10 plus years since the last Kingdom Hearts 2 pure entry.
Like, is it just going to be another fun Disney, characters? Like, I just can't see this thing being a huge hit. Maybe with kids or something. When I played,
never got it in the first place, so
I don't know, man. Like, I want my Final Fantasy for Final Fantasy. I want Disney characters to exist, and then the crossover has always been weird to me. I will say that the footage they showed from the Toy Story world that was announced, those graphics are insane, dude. They look like on par. They're finally on par with like a Pixar movie, which is like hats off to them. Other notes for it, it's not even going to be considered for the Nintendo Switch until the PS4 and Xbox versions are done. Once again, I know Nintendo Switch is lighting the world on fire, but people need to just like calm down when they think every game is going to be able to be ported to Switch. It's not going to happen. And this is going to be the case. Yeah, dude, this is the case of the Wii U all over again in this aspect. It's like your third-party developers aren't going to be able to port the same game to your system because of the technical limitations it has. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I know there's like rabid fans for the series. Someone I follow online is Alexa Ray Correa. She wrote the Kingdom Hearts book. She's recently on the Kind of Funny Games cast. She's formerly of GameSpot. She is the Kingdom Hearts master. Like, if you have any questions about this series whatsoever, Jonathan Dornbush from IGN, Alexa from formerly of GameSpot, and then Tim Geddes run the Kind of Funny Games cast this week, breaking down the entire series. It's just a cool listen just to figure out the story, like what the hell is this about? But it's halfway through, and they got confused about what the series is about by then. I'm like, that's not a good sign. Like, all these signs are bad. So I'm sure it's going to be beautiful and people are going to buy it. But dude, I don't know. Like, I think it's too long. And this is one of those franchises that have been around, that have been stale for like too long, and I'm worried about it. So, any thoughts, guys?
It's got sequelitis to the max.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason not to reboot that franchise. This is a good juncture to do it. I
think the same thing, man. Like, take 3, but reboot it in a way where it's like you can tell a new story, but include elements from the first 2 games just to catch up on the narrative, and then shoot
or even
off,
do
man.
the Final Fantasy approach.
Yeah.
Be like, this is a Kingdom Hearts game, new story, new people, new location.
I'm down with that plan. Ronan, does this tickle your fancy at all?
I like the charm of the first 2. I just think that I'm not waiting for this game to come out. It's when it comes out, it comes out. Just like Kingdom 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2. They just were there and I got to play them and I enjoyed them. But I'm not gonna hang out and wait for them like, oh please, Kingdom Hearts 3. It's just, I don't hear anyone saying that. Maybe a couple, but I just don't see much shout for this game. I think it's their own hype that they're building here.
Yeah, I think you got a good point right there, Ro. I think this game exists in this vacuum where it's like the only people who are excited about it are the Kingdom Hearts fans, and by this point,
and the developers,
which is, I forget who's developing. It's like, maybe it's Nakamura. I forget who's dev on this one.
Probably changed hands a couple of times.
Oh man, yeah, it changed development from Unreal 3 to Unreal 4, and he's like, that wasn't my plan to do it. And like, Square told me to do this, and so like that delayed the development like another 5 years to redo the entire game. I'm like, this is gonna happen where it's Last Guardian syndrome and it's freaking Final Fantasy 15 syndrome, and it's these games are coming out after so long, and Last Guardian was a hit. I'm not gonna fake that. Final Fantasy 15 was a hit, but it left people like this empty feeling. I was like, oh, I waited 10 plus years for that. And that sucks. And I don't want these fans to be disappointed in this, because you're waiting 10 plus years for a mainline story. You get it. And what my whole thing is like, what if this game's an 8, right? Like, what if this game's like good and doesn't set the world on fire? Like, what does that mean?
Then that'll surprise me.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, when Final Fantasy 15 came out, and it's like an aggregate score was like an average of like 7.8 to 8, like on the internet, and it's like that.
I think by all likelihood that's where it's going to land.
Yeah, me too. Like, I just think the same thing. Like, no matter how gorgeous it is, man, if you don't update everything you need to update, I think they might be in trouble. Like, I can't say anything, but there's something weird about this one that has me feeling away. Yeah, dude. I just don't know.
It's funny you brought up something interesting that, looking at it from a business perspective, when the lead on it said, they want to change from Unreal 3 to Unreal 4. And he made some other comments about, like how decisions were made above him.
Yeah.
It sounds like, as someone who's sort of sat in and discussed about projects and stuff like that in a corporate board environment, what it really sounds like is his project got out of scope and somebody was tasked with getting that shit into a saleable condition. So they said, look, PS3, you've taken so long, PS3 is not the option. Unreal 4, it needs to be for PS4, and you guys got to start making this fucking game and get it out. And I think that some of that's him backlashing it, being under the gun to perform. But, the syndrome has gotten better in the US, but it still exists in Japan, where it's like, he can just go off and make whatever he wants and fuck people off for like a decade before he spits it out, and the problem is you build your hype so high, there's no way you're going to live up to it at that point, Yeah,
man. It's just, I think the hype machine is like way too big. Then you start scaling down. We'll see. Next thing I want to go to, this was going to be a topic, but I actually put out a call for reader questions, and I thought this was interesting. And it's something that's coming up coming up a lot in the zeitgeist right now. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. The voice and nasals are kind of all like combining into one. I'm like botching a bunch of words. Okay, this is from Ian from Boulder, Colorado. Hey guys, we're now at the halfway point in the year, and I was wondering what each of your games of the year are so far. For me, it's The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Ian, you're wrong. That game sucks. The game lets you explore Hyrule like never before, and the DLC has me coming back for more every night. Thanks for everything, and keep up the good work. Ian from Boulder, Colorado. So, I'm throwing it to you guys. Like, I have a running list on my desktop computer. Never mind, it is not a desktop, and it is a laptop. And I'm going to run down the list for you guys really quick of everything I've played so far in 2017. New games. So I'm counting New games have been released from January 1st to now. Gravity Rush 2, Resident Evil 7, Yakuza 0, Hitman, For Honor, Sniper Elite 4, Night in the Woods, Horizon Zero Dawn, Legend of Zelda, 1-2 Switch, Nier Automata, Mass Effect Andromeda, Mr. Shifty, MLB The Show 17, Persona 5, Yooka-Laylee, Guardians of the Galaxy, What Remains of Edith Finch, Little Nightmares, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, NBA Playgrounds, Prey, Injustice 2, Rime, Dirt 4, Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, and then I'm just starting Final Fantasy 12, The Zodiac Age. Those are everything I've played. For me, it's
Horizon.
Yeah, dude. Horizon is my thing, right? It's my pick for so far. But I was listening to another show. They're talking about What Remains of Edith Finch, and I've talked about it on the show before. There's something about that narrative of that game that's sticking with me way longer than it should have, man. That game is so haunting and just intricate that it's still like on my mind. Right now it's Horizon and Edith Finch are like 1-2. The most hours I put into a game is probably Dirt 4, just because like the nature of like what that game is. But man, dude, I just forget, like, hearing shows talk about like this discussion. Goddamn, dude, I just love Horizon Zero Dawn like so much, and I can't wait for that DLC to jump back into it. That's my pick so far, Ian. Ronan, what's your current flavor for Game of the Year for 2017?
I'm going to have to go with the same one as you, Shawnee, just for the fact that we didn't really know what to expect with Horizon. It looked gorgeous, but we didn't think it would bring the gameplay that it does. And I think to play that game, I've said it before on the show, that it's nearly the perfect game. As in, when you play it, you can't really find anything wrong with it. I think, like I said, if this game came out 5 years ago, it would stand on the brink of everything that ever came before it. But I think because the likes of The Witcher have come before it, it kind of dampens what Horizon is. But by no means is it to be forgotten about. I think the fact that they're releasing DLC for it, that keep the game going. It's a single player experience, which I think is super important as well in this day and age, where you have so many shooters and you can just name probably 5 or 6 multiplayer first-person shooters that came out this year, PC included. And I think it's really important that these narrative-driven open-world games are still being made and still being recognized. And even though we're a tad little bit burnt out on open-world games, I think Horizon is just phenomenal and one of the masterpieces that has come out in the last couple of years.
Yeah, man. I can't find anything wrong with that argument. And the thing you said is if this game came out like 5 years ago, it would be like the best of all time. And I agree with that. But at the same time, the craziness of this game and the way I appreciate it so much is like, if this game came out 5 years ago, it'd burn our PS3 to the ground. Because like it wouldn't be able to handle it.
That's so true.
It's like what you see and what you're doing in this game is as important as how good it feels. Like nothing feels better this year than like shooting down like tie downs to like giant.
Don't forget photo mode.
Oh, dude,
that was awesome.
Oh, photo mode. It's like this game is like a complete package for me. It's like I'm like just double fisting this game right now, dude. I'm like, here we go, just Horizon Zero Dawn all day, dude. Just let me have
awesome.
it. Kent, you have anything different for your Game of the Year so far?
Nope, but I have a caveat. So I think you guys have waxed fairly poetic on Horizon. I agree 100%. It's easily the best thing out this part of the year. The caveat being, in my experience, most of the Game of the Year contenders start hitting in August, and go through till December. I think we're going to see Far Cry 5 in that mix this year. It's definitely going to be in that conversation.
Delayed until March 2018.
Ah, you bastards. Okay. I figured that was a December game just on autopilot. My bad. I still think the other ones, though, I think Destiny has the opportunity to be in that conversation again, because
that game is going to be that conversation for months.
I kind of agree, but I'm hedging my bet. But they seem to have taken the feedback directly and personally, and I feel like that always nets a better game. And same thing with Battlefront. I feel like Battlefront could be in that conversation. Granted, they're both first-person shooters, but they're both doubling back down on story.
Right.
And, that's kind of where I feel like you make emotional connections with people who are players or viewers, and If you just run back the runtime of this episode, the amount of times we've talked about how important the story was in Until Dawn, and how important the story is in Horizon, and how important the story is in Edith Finch. Story is what gets people invested. And we kind of went through a little dark period of that, where I think over the last year, people tried to just release gameplay. Gameplay's king, just play the game. And I don't know that that's going to play out that well this fall season, because there's a lot of games that are really trying to come hard at some phenomenal storytelling to go with a great base that they had in just a basic multiplayer kind of game,
Sure, man. Like, I agree. And then when you're talking about narrative games too, there's also Tacoma from Steve Gaynor, the follow-up to Gone Home, which is completely narrative-focused game. I think that discussion is going to be there. You have Destiny. You said Battlefront. What else is coming out? I think it won't be mentioned in Game of the Year, but I want to see
Call
like
of Duty
with this
could be in that conversation. In theory, Call of Duty could be in that conversation.
I was just going to say
World
that
War
with this increased focus on narrative and like the struggle of a soldier in World War II. I mean, everything we've seen, that game is gruesome and in your face, and is going to tell you a story of like World War II. And I think that could be like extremely cool.
Here's something really crazy to think about on that tip. You know what? I don't think it will be. I think there's zero chance it will be, but it could be. It meets the criteria to potentially be in that conversation. Is fucking Madden.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's like where they're like refocusing the entire half of the game is now like a narrative focused story. They're like, hey,
they're like shoehorning Remember the Titans in there, which if you think about it is fucking brilliant, because how many millions of dollars do people shell out to go see sports movies, or how successful is 30 for 30 or ESPN or ESPN2 that just run on that, or ESPN Classics that just runs on watching old shit over again.
Dude. And I think
brilliant on their part.
But yeah, you're putting talent in that game, like Mahershala Ali, I think that's his name, where he just won an Oscar for his work in Moonlight, and you're getting these like huge names coming to do the narrative, and it's like what they did with FIFA last year. It's like you put this narrative focus in the sports game, and all of a sudden you're pulling in this other section that would never play a sports game, and then it's happened on another podcast, not just ours, where it's like, oh yeah, I might give Madden a go this year. I'm like, why? Because the narrative focus, you're pulling in a new audience already. I think that's a great point, Ken. So I think, as always, narrative is going to remain the key. The dark horse, though, is maybe not so much a dark horse, but fucking Mario. I think Mario is going to have like this great chance, man. It's like
Mario's so the opposite of that, right? Like Mario is great gameplay personified. Is usually when they come out. They're not deep on story ever, but
but it's just like it is just gameplay is king with that game, and I think that's going to succeed for Nintendo in a way that Zelda also succeeded for Nintendo. Zelda hit the open world, the sense of adventure, like the oh man, it's a pun, but the breadthness of like this area to like explore. But Mario is just going to nail the gameplay, and I think
Sean has sold about Zelda so far.
Yeah, that it's big.
That's true. Most positive.
Breath of fresh air.
Still wrong. That game's crap. Whatever. I'm down with Mario though. Like, I'll be way down with that game. So Horizon with a caveat. so I think so far.
Well, I don't know if Horizon will survive, but I think it will. I think Horizon will survive just fine, and I think it may end up being people's game of the year. I'm sure at least one outlet will give it game of the year, but I think there's a lot of good competition. Whereas now there's nothing really.
So I think this big three is going to be Persona, Zelda, Horizon. I think those are going to be the three moving forward. That these are gigantic, just immersive games that are going to have people talking, which is, we'll see how it shakes out. But if there's man, like this second half of the year is so backloaded, which is going to be just fucking crazy, where it's like we'll have to be doing a show every week nonstop because there's like that many games releasing every week on store shelves, which is awesome. And we're going to wrap up the show with our random question of the day. Boys, we've been talking about nostalgia, but what's one thing in entertainment you haven't understood why the hell it came back? And I will start. Power Rangers. Fuck Power Rangers. Like, it is the worst. Like, the absolute worst. It existed from 1994 to 1998, and then it spawned all these different franchises, and they're desperate for this thing that came back. It didn't flop at the theater, didn't do good. I just don't get it, man. I just don't get it. I just do not understand Power Rangers. That makes me sad, because like young Sean would have been very disappointed in me.
But intentional corn, like in movies, that's been kind of coming back again.
Oh, like
in the 80s, that was a thing, and I didn't like it then. I I don't celebrate Rodney Dangerfield's catalog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, the person who was the king of that was Bill Murray, and it's because he could do it in sort of a snarky way that it didn't like break the fourth wall. It just doesn't work for me now, and I don't get it. It sucks ass. It takes what could be an otherwise decent movie and makes it feel like they didn't have enough confidence in their own vision, so they're going to wink at the screen and do this. We know it sucks. That doesn't make it not suck. You still suck.
A piece of nostalgia that came back, and you don't know why it came back.
I'm going to go down the same route as you, Sean, and pick a franchise that's close enough, I would say, that should have stayed in the past with my childhood, and that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, movie 1 and 2.
That's a good one, man.
They're both absolute garbage that look like a Transformer film. The CGI is horrific, and Megan Fox is in another one of those movies again with more plastic surgery on her face.
Oh my god, I never thought of that. She jumped from Bruckheimer to Bruckheimer franchise. Oh, and then real quick before we leave, we talked a little bit before the show. I'm sorry, you can't be a part of this. Ronin, Baby Driver. Dude.
3 words to describe Baby Driver, Sean.
What's up?
3 words to describe Baby Driver.
Ooh. Music. Oh, man. Hold on. I have to pull the Jamie Foxx quote from the movie. Cars, women, drugs, guns. Oh, shit, that's 4. But like, it's like nice. It's that type, right? So it's like, yeah, music and cars and action is like that. Is that to the T? Like, I love that film. I've seen it so many freaking times because it does get something new every single time. And then we'll do Spider-Man. So Ronan,
Spider-Man
really quick,
fun ride.
Yeah, so Spider-Man: Homecoming, Tom Holland's the best Spider-Man. Yes, no.
100%, and I do see why he's going to be playing young Nathan Drake after watching the movie. If that makes sense.
You can see.
Yeah, I can 100%. I think he looks the image of young Nathan Drake in the movie or in the game.
He has like this one shot where he's like in this this cream color, like 3 button-down shirt, and he looks at the camera like, that's Drake's shirt.
Yeah, you're promoting the goddamn film.
Yeah, dude, it's perfect, man. So no, I'm on board. I'm buying all the stock in Tom Holland I can. I'm buying all the Spider-Man stock. Let me have it.
Baby Driver has been my movie of the year. I think it's yours too. I think for me, if I was to say 3 words about Baby Driver, I would say surprising, because I wasn't expecting it to be like that or to have that kind of musical flair the whole way through the movie. Cool, because he is just the coolest motherfucker ever. He owns the screen without actually being forceful. And I think he's phenomenal in the movie. I think Jamie Foxx is really good too. A really kind of fun aspect that you needed in a movie like that. And the last one is just amazing. It's an amazing movie that you want to see over and over again.
Yeah, that's my game of the year. That's movie of the year so far. Yeah, man, dude, 10 out of 10. That movie's perfect. You're right. So we're gonna get out of here. I have to go earn my doctorate degree. One of these guys has to go to sleep eventually. Kent has to charm his lovely live-in girlfriend, who's very nice. So can't make her a nice dinner or something. Ronan, if the folks want to find you, where can they find you at?
You can find me at the Alpha Car page, and they can also get me over on the YouTube channel. And earlier on, you shouted out and I just want to do a little shout out for you. I listened to your first episode on Sean and stuff about sex. I want to recommend that to everyone just to go and listen. It is a relaxing episode that tackles a really complicated, well, it's not so complicated with the way you break it down, but a complicated topic with sex, and you make it, relaxing, enjoyable, and quite fun. And I enjoyed it from start to finish. So definitely thumbs up on that one.
Appreciate that. Yeah. And then Kent, if the fine people want to find you, where can they find you at?
I am at Squirp, SQU1RP, everywhere. Twitter. I don't use Twitter much anymore because all the porn fishing, but I'm there. Facebook, Instagram.
Squirt me, bro.
PSN.
Squirt me.
Whatever. Yeah. That name attracts a lot of weirdos, not going to lie.
Yeah, dude. How much you pay for 2 guys, 1 girl squirping action? I'm like, oh, dude, I don't know. Charging you extra. If anybody wants to find me on PSN, I'm Adonai, Adonai. this plug has been working because I've getting numerous PlayStation requests from people who are fans of the show, which is awesome. Keep it coming. Destiny 2 is coming. Let's play. Kent and I will be on there, I'm sure, at some point. I don't know about Kent. I'm 100% in it. Kent will figure it out.
I'll get roped in because my son.
I'm not doing the demo, but I'm not doing the beta. I mean, but I'm already paying the game off, man. So it's
Day
like
one.
$20 left on it.
If you want to find me on Twitter, Sean_P_Malloy. And Ronan was kind enough to plug my other venture that I don't let cross over to this one. That is Sean on Stuff, SeanOnStuff.com. Those are longer editorial pieces where I needed a space to write on books or sex or movies or anything that's not involved with gaming, because that's another just a side of my personality that I like. I started my own venture, had my buddy Adam Johnson do all the art. He's awesome. If anyone wants to if anyone wants to contact him, I'll give you his contact information. But I say at the end of every show, I mentioned it earlier in the show, we come together because we love games. We love talking about them. Ronan brought up the great story of the communities that it can build together. He brought over a retro console to his friend's house, and they had fun playing a game that's 20 years old. And I think that's the moral of the story, of this big gaming story. Yeah, have fun. And I think that's the perfect way to end the show. Have fun with gaming. I'm Sean Malloy from the Alpha Zone, and we are out.